Well, it's a rainy old day here on the England-Wales border. It's quite windy too, and as you might be able to see out of the window, there's really not much visibility. So this is the last day I'd normally choose to go out for a hike, but that's why I've decided to make this video. I've decided to do the opposite of what I'd normally do. Normally I'd stay on a day like this. I've got my waterproofs in my backpack, so I'm kitted out for this weather. So I'm going to come for a hike in the wind and the rain, and you never know, it might actually be enjoyable. First, let me explain where I am. I'm at Haybluff on the England-Wales border, just south of Hay-on-Wye. So I'm surrounded by the Black Mountains. You can't actually see it at the moment because of all the mist. We're going to climb up onto the ridge of the Black Mountains. We might be inside a cloud, but I don't care. I'm not sure if you can hear the wind lashing against the windows of the car. But anyway, this isn't going to put me off. I've got the gear, so why let a little bit of wind and rain keep me trapped indoors? The first thing to do was get layered up. Not so easy to do in the wind, so I turned the car around so I had shelter at the back to put on the rest of my gear. I'm already wearing 3 layers on top and thermals below my jeans, but I'll need waterproofing too. So it's on with my Gore-Tex leggings and anorak, some extra thick socks, and then my rubber wellies. I've also got a woolly hat and some gloves, and thought I was well prepared for the weather. Well, this is insane weather to be out hiking in. It's blowing a gale. You can probably hear all the wind noise. And as you can see, there's next to no visibility. So I've got wind, rain and no view. So at this point, there really doesn't seem like much point to doing this hike. But I'm here now, and I've come out for the express purpose of seeing if it's worth hiking on a day like today. So I'm going to head up the hill behind me onto the top of the ridge. Who knows, maybe I'll be through the cloud, and maybe later on the cloud's going to clear. We'll get some lovely views. But anyway, let's get on our way. Well, I'm halfway up the hill I'm climbing, and the wind has died down and it's actually gone quite calm. But that's deceptive. I think I'm just in the lee of this hill, and when I get to the top of the ridge, it's going to be a very different story. The car park where I left from is already lost in the mist. So I continued up the hill. Since I was shielded from the wind and I was going up a steep slope, I began to feel a bit too warm and wondered if I'd put on too many layers, but I knew things would change when I got to the top. Okay, I'll have to face this way so you can actually hear me. That marker you can see behind me, that trig point, is the top of Haybluff. From this point now, I'm going to head south-southeast directly into the eye of the wind. So standing like this with my back to the weather, it's not so bad. I don't have the rain in my face, but as soon as I turn around, different story. So anyway, that's what I've come up here to do. So let's start heading down that trail, and I'm going to find somewhere further down the path in a few miles, maybe to stop and have a brew. I've got my little stove in my backpack, so coffee, warm up, very nice. Okay, let's get going. Now I was up on the top of the ridge, I began the main part of my hike. Although the conditions were pretty awful, the path itself wasn't. It's very well maintained, and even in this weather, there were no bits too muddy to walk through. There are stretches of stone pathway where necessary, so it was easy going. Well, I'm about a mile or so south of the trig point where I started at the top of the ridge. The wind is back, but it's actually not too bad. We're about 2,000 feet up here, and I thought the wind would be absolutely howling. It actually felt a lot stronger down in the car park, but maybe it was being funneled through the mountain pass. I don't know. So I've got the rain in my face, but that's not as bad as I thought it would be, and it doesn't even feel that cold. There is absolutely no visibility, as you can see, but that might change. I think the cloud is expected to thin out a bit later in the afternoon, so we might end up with some views after all. But I'm going to press on anyway, so things aren't so bad. It's just above freezing point, and the rain's hitting me in the face, and my rain's going a bit kind of raw. And as soon as I take my gloves off, my hands freeze. I can see some more high ground up ahead of me, so I'm going to get higher, and who knows, maybe this wind will get stronger. But when I've got my gloves on, I'm actually all right. I'm perfectly warm, perfectly dry. So I continued along the ridge path for about 3 or 4 miles until I came to a small summit near Capel y Fin. I was hoping to find a sizable cairn to shelter behind, but no such luck. In the end, I had to just sit on a stone with my back to the wind. It's time for a coffee and something to eat. Hang on, is this gonna... Yep, good. I've brought my stove with me. I've got an Army MRE. I can't remember which one. And I've got some coffee making gear, so the first thing to do is to get some water on to boil. So let's get out the jet boil. So the first half of my walk into the rain, well, I wouldn't say it was fun, but it wasn't bad either. I've been warm, my head's warm, and as long as my gloves are on, my hands are warm. But beyond that, there's not much good to say about it. I can't really see anything. There's absolutely no view. Oh, my hands are getting cold now. I've just taken my gloves off to do this, and already they're starting to get a bit raw. At this point, my sound recorder ran out of space, so it's voiceover from this point on. I mentioned before that despite the weather, I was warm and dry. Well, I wasn't as dry as I thought. The rain had soaked through all my upper layers right down to my skin. I just hadn't noticed because walking had kept me warm. As I sat on that stone waiting for my food to warm up, I began to feel very cold. So I got my food down as fast as I could and started my hike back. I thought I'd warm up again once I was moving, but even when I was back at my car, I was still really cold. Well, I'm glad to be back in the car. That walk was a bit of a disaster. I got to my turnaround point, made a brew, started cooking and everything, and it was all going well. I was warm enough on that walk as long as I was moving, but as soon as I stopped, let me just get rid of the mist off this. This car's steaming up, as you can see. Is that going to be any better? Yeah, as soon as I stopped moving, I started to get cold really fast. I thought having a brew and a meal would, you know, raise my spirits, warm me up, but in hindsight, I shouldn't have stopped walking. The cold got into me quite fast. Quite a bit of wet got through my waterproof layers and onto my clothes, and I didn't realise it when I was moving because it kept me warm, but as soon as I sat there, God, yeah, I got cold fast. My hands got really numb. My sound recorder ran out of card space, but that's totally on me. I forgot to empty the card before I left home, and that is a rookie mistake. I then thought I'll delete some files off it, but my fingers were too numb to operate it, and I was just in no mood at that point to try and remedy things. So I turned back. It took me a long time to warm up again after I cooled down, and so the second half of this walk was actually more unpleasant than the first half, which is the opposite of how I thought it would be. You see, on the first outward leg of this walk, I was walking into the wind and rain. It was hitting me in the face, and I thought that would be a big problem. It wasn't. Walking back, I had the wind and rain behind me, but I was just shivering at that point. So this great idea of mine of going for a hike in the rain, and I'm not going to let the weather put me off going for a walk. Well, the problem with today is I didn't just have the rain to contend with. There was the rain, there was the wind. I think it's about 20 mile an hour wind up there. There's no visibility, so there's no nice view anyway. And also it's about 2 degrees above freezing. So all of those factors combined, yeah, I should have just stayed at home. What was I thinking? This hiking in the rain idea though, I'll stick with. I think I'll just choose a day when it's only raining. So a day when it's calm, there isn't high winds, there's a view, and maybe it's a little bit warmer. I think it'll be a totally different story. The other problem up on that ridge was a total lack of any shelter. So, you know, as you saw when I was making the brew and whatever, I just had to sit on a rock with my back to the wind, and yeah, that's not the way to do it. So, very glad to be back in the car now. I'm just waiting for the heater to warm up. I'm going to go home, change into some dry stuff, and then it's going to be feet up and just sit in front of the TV for the rest of the day. Still, I'm glad I gave it a go. So, not much of a fun walk, but I will revisit this idea just in more favourable conditions. Okay, that's all for now. See you in the next one.